First, I'd like to welcome everybody to our webinar today. My name is Paul Buchel. I'm one of the sales reps with Synergetic Data Systems, also known as UnForm. Today, we're going to step through Image Manager, which is the application used to capture either external or electronic documents, bring them through various processes to get them indexed or get data from them, and then move them into the UnForm archive or other document repositories if required. Just kind of a quick overview, we've got a full solution suite of products dealing with document management, from print management that allows you to capture data from your ERP and other sources and create forms and reports and automatically deliver those. We've got the archive, which is our document repository, which allows you to store and retrieve documents that come either from the print management solution or from Image Manager. And any documents within the archive are available for our doc flow processing, which allows you to route documents and do other things with them. But today, again, our focus is going to be on Image Manager, and Image Manager is used to capture either hard copies of documents, or if it's an electronic copy, those can come in without you having to actually print them out, scan them, and bring them in. We've got a variety of ways to do that. And as they come through Image Manager, we'll process them and push them into the archive so that they're available for retrieval as needed. We made some pretty significant changes with the latest version, which is version 10, came out at the beginning of the year. You know, the big one is that everything is browser-based now, so including Image Manager. So it's very easy to deploy. You don't have to do installs, you know, on people's desktops and things like that to deploy it. It's all browser-based, so they go to a URL, and from there they can work. And the focus of most of the enhancements in Image Manager is on automation and the ability to automate the process by which we bring documents into the system. So the documents, you know, the job definitions that we use to process documents can either, you know, you can still do manual indexing, but the idea here is to be able to bring a document in, fully index it, transfer it to the archive, or place it in a doc flow so you can route it for approval or a variety of other uses, or even format it as an electronic transaction to be handed off to the ERP for automated data entry, and all of that without having to have any human intervention. So again, a lot of effort went into it to be able to automate the processes to minimize the amount of data entry required to get documents not only into the archive, but in some instances into your ERP as well. But we also balance that, though, so that, you know, it's easy for an operator, a person, to go in and manually index things or correct things as needed. So it's a balance between, you know, automation and usability by the end user. The start of the process is where we've created the ability to create inbound sources. And an inbound source is where documents end up, and we'll monitor that particular source. And as documents come in, we can pick them up and process them based on the parameters that are associated with that source. That source could be an email address, or it could be, you know, a directory somewhere on your network. So we can monitor an email address, and as documents come in, we can define what we want to do with those documents based on that particular monitored inbound source. So in this example, I can monitor anything that comes into this email address, and then I can assign actions and then the options to it. So I can say, as documents come in, detect who sent them, and then run my AP job on it so that I can extract the information I need from those documents to either automatically index them or get the data off of them to be able to create an electronic transaction from. The monitored inbound source could also be a directory. So you may have a directory where you have documents that are scanned to that specific directory, and from there you run a job for it. And you can also drag and drop documents in there. But again, you know, a typical example would be if you're scanning, you know, signed PIC tickets. You can scan them to a specific directory. UnForm will monitor that directory. Image Manager will pick up those documents and process them based on whatever the particular configuration is for that monitored inbound source. Once it gets into Image Manager, Job definitions are what make all the magic happen. So the job definitions are extremely flexible, and there's a variety of ways to configure these to process the documents based on whatever the requirement are. Kind of a couple of the bullet points are, parameters can be assigned to a job. So if you have a particular supplier sending you invoices, you could plug in, the vendor name and number. So parameters kind of like the static data that you want to go with all the documents that are processed by that job. You can define zones, which identify where we want to get some data off of that, and the zone could be either text we're pulling from a PDF, it could be optical character recognition to pull that data, or it could be a barcode read, and other ways to do the zones as well. The detection gives you the ability to run a validation against data that we've captured in one of those zones and identify what particular jobs we need to run based on that detection criteria. So it may be a phone number for one of your customers. So when it reads that phone number, it knows it's customer, Acme, and knows what to do with that document. You can create custom fields to capture additional data or to enter additional data. And that data could be entered by the user, or we can do lookups into other applications and pull data in from there. The identification fields are define, the information we're going to use to push that into the various UnForm archive libraries. And then the thing that really adds a tremendous amount of flexibility is, if you can't knock it out with any of these, with all these, you can add custom scripting to the job definition as well. And with version 10, all that it now uses the same programming language that is used to create rule files. So if you're familiar with building a rule file for your print management in forms, it's the same language. So it's a pretty short, easy learning curve if you already know how to build a rule file. And then jobs can be configured, again, to either fully automate or to partially automate, or combinations of both. And we can use a variety of different things to capture this information that we need to be able to, index and store that document or process it based on whatever the criteria are. We can do lookups into other applications. So we can look up into an ERP and validate that the PO number is actually a valid PO number within the ERP. We can do click to fill. So you can actually configure fields so that when you click on a value on the document itself, it will populate the field based on the value you've clicked on. So again, the idea here is gives the user the ability to speed up that whole process. We can also do barcode recognition, so we can read a barcode and get a value from it. And then you can combine that with the ERP lookup capability. So once I get a PO number or order number, I can look up additional information that I may need to be able to store along with that document. And then we can also pull text from PDF documents, or if it's an image, use optical character recognition to grab that data as well. And we're going to kind of talk about the differences between these two things in a few minutes when we get into some of the looking at how some of these jobs run. But again, they're ways that you can either partially or fully automate the whole process, or in combinations of these things. So there's a tremendous amount of flexibility to be able to get the information you need, to be able to store and retrieve that document. Just kind of the way a full job, fully automated job would work is you create a inbound source, and based on that source, you tell it, what you want it to do. So detect who sent me the document and run these, the appropriate job definition based on it. So as the documents land in that inbound source, whether it's an email or directory, it'll monitor it, pick it up, and start running them. The detect logic will identify who sent it and what we need to do with that document. Then the information for that document would be populated based on, whatever the appropriate data extraction method is. So is it using PDF text to do this? Is it using, ERP lookup capability? Whatever that is, it'll populate that information. It'll run validations to confirm that that data has been extract it accurately, and validations, there's a variety of ways to use those to do that. Once that's done and it passes validation, it's going to push the document into the UnForm archive for storage, and it's going to link it to related documents, or it could, at this point, it could also push it into a doc flow from here. With Image Manager, you don't need to buy any additional software to do it. You can use it to automate data entry for various processes. A typical scenario is with accounts payable. So as documents come in for accounts payable, we can run different validations on it to begin with. So again, some examples are, does the PO number exist in my ERP? We can also do mathematical validation. So if we look back here, we can validate the merchandise total plus any add-ons actually equals the invoice amount, and validate that we extracted that data accurately based on that. We can also validate that the line items are coming in accurately. So we can validate that the quantity times the price foots to the line total. If it doesn't, it gets flagged and would be flagged for an operator to come in and check it and correct whatever the error is. We can also, another good example is duplicate entry. So as documents come in, we can check and see if they already exist in the archive. And if they do, we can flag it to stop so that somebody can research it prior to actually finishing that document. Then once that document comes through, we're going to push the document into the archive along with the XML data that we extracted from it. Then with that data we've scraped off that document, we can format it using a rule file based on whatever the target application's requirements are. So it can be formatted as XML, it could be formatted as an EDI.dat file, CSV, it could be pushed to offline files. It can be formatted based on whatever the particular requirements are for the target application. And then it gets pushed over and the data gets imported. And again, the idea here is, create the transaction and have it entered electronically to eliminate the data entry required to get that in. So again, Image Manager, you can use it for very simple jobs where you're manually indexing jobs, but you can also keep adding automation to it until you actually get to the point where you're pushing transactions straight into the ERP without anybody having to do any data entry at all. And again, the Image Manager can be used to push documents into UnForm Archive, but we can also push documents into other repositories as well. So if you've already got an existing document repository, you do have options to be able to use Image Manager to automate that data capture and then push it over into other repositories. So let me jump over here for just a minute and we'll start taking a look at some software. So this is the server, UnForm server page. So this is where you get to the various applications that are part of the document management solution. Again, it's all browser-based. So, it's very easy to deploy. This is Image Manager. Here's inbound sources. So, you see we've got different sources defined. And let me come over here and note, I'm going to email these 5 different invoices to this particular email address. So I'm going to hit send, and that'll take a minute or two to process. And while it's doing that, let me step you through the inbound sources real quick. So inbound sources are set up under the Archive tab under Admin. And then in here you can see where they've been set up. So again, they can be an email address that's monitored, and then as documents come in, you can define what you want to do to them. So the action could be to import them only and have them sit in an Image Manager. You can have them come in and detect and run jobs based on whatever groups they're in, assign and run, or in some cases it might want to use it to run a rule file on a job as well. It can also be inbound directories as well. And then you also, based on this inbound source, you can assign access to it to different users, so that you can have inbound sources specific to users, so that they're not, they don't have to see other folks' documents when they go in to do their work. So come back over here to Image Manager. We should start to see, yep, so those invoices that I just processed have arrived. And you'll notice too that, excuse me, we actually have more documents in here than what I emailed. And that's because in some cases, we've got folks that are sending a single PDF that has multiple invoices in it. Well, within the job definition, you can define, that, hey, this is a single PDF, but I've got different invoices in it. So as it picks up the invoice number and detects a new one, you can split that out as a separate document. So you don't have to do any kind of pre-processing of the PDF ahead of time. It'll take care of that for you. You also notice too, I've got all these check marks here. So these all indicate that these documents came in, they processed, and passed all the validations, and they're ready to be uploaded. We've just got the automations turned off on these now, so you can, for demo purposes, so you can see it. If we'd had the automation turned on, everything here with a check mark would have been automatically uploaded into the UnForm archive, or in, possibly into a doc flow from here. So all these would have just passed on through. So really the only thing when you've got a job definition set up like this, someone needs to just come in periodically and verify that there aren't any exceptions, or take whatever action it is based on that document. So this one didn't get a check mark because one of the validations was to check for duplicates. So it did determine that there is a duplicate value. So this document has already come in. So you need to do a little bit of research to figure out exactly what's happened here, and if it is in fact a duplicate or not. But you'll see as the document came in, we were able to grab all that information off of it that we're using to store and retrieve it. And in this example, we're doing actually a bit more. We're actually pulling line item detail off of this document as well. So we're getting all that line item detail off of here, so that we can in fact create an electronic transaction out of this document. So as those come in, again, what we've done is defined a job definition based on this particular sender. It is, it's a one-time setup per sender. Typically, it's a copy paste, so you can, take an existing job definition, save it as a new name, and go in and make any tweaks you need to, to be able to process that document. And within here, here's where you're defining parameters. So again, this is static information that can come along with this document. So, you can define the vendor and a vendor number in here. If needed, you can add other fields that you want to pass through, GL accounts based on that particular vendor. If it goes to, GL account different than normal, that can be set up. All these various options are in here. And then in here too is also where you can turn on and off automation as well. So from here, you have the ability to set not only this information, but then to determine, what other actions you want to do with this document as it's processed. The zones are defining where it's pulling data from. So the doc number, it's pulling it from here. You'll see this is grabbing this order number. And then if, these can be adjusted by moving these boxes around. So again, it's, fairly straightforward to be able to adjust these zones based on different senders. And of course, you can run different filters on these as well, which gives you really a lot of capability to manage the data as it's read, to make sure we're getting exactly what we're looking for. The detection logic simply says, when you find, in this particular zone, we're looking for a value to determine, who sent it and what we need to do with it. The data fields are used, to define what data we want to capture off of this. And again, it can be, depending on what you're doing, it may be 3 or 4 different data fields, or it could be quite a few, as we see here as well. The identification tab, that's just going to say, it gives you the information you need to be able to, tell what library you want to push it to, how you want to formulate, in this example, the document ID. And then other information, what do you want to use for categories and keywords, those kinds of things. And then again, and here's our enable click to fill. So you can use that to determine whether or not you want to, when you click on a document, if you want to pull that data over as well. And then if for some reason you can't get to it with all these options, I think, you do have the ability to do some custom scripting as well. So it's a very powerful tool to be able to get the information off of the document to either, index it or process it through doc flows, or, to be able to do automated data entry. Another little more simple job is one that this would be an example of one where we're using a couple of the other methods of to pull data as documents come in. So in this example, I've got a barcoded document. It's represents in this example an order number. So when it comes in, it'll process this document, put it into a pending folder for me. And you'll see they're all sitting right here. Again, I've got automation turned off just so you can see the steps it goes through. From here, I'd simply say, hey, I'd have it set up to detect and run these jobs. So when it comes in, it would run it, read the barcode, pulls, in this example, an order number off of here, and then in combination with the lookup capability, I can pull additional information from that document. From some other application that I need to be able to store and retrieve that document as well. So again, you can have, very automated processes. You can have partially automated processes, or you can have manual processes, just depending on what the particular documents are and what the requirements are for the data that you need to get from those documents. So so that is, and again, once these are all processed, they get pushed over into the archive and are available, for retrieval based on, the various criteria that we've used to store it. So that is, kind of an overview of Image Manager and, some of the capabilities. Our intent here today was to give you, an overview of, what some of the capabilities are and get you thinking about, different ways that it can be used based on different types of documents. So all of it is, again, you can do manual indexing all the way through to that full-blown, AP automation processes within Image Manager. One of the things that, I want to make sure you guys are aware of is that as we get closer to November, we are doing our UnForm Solutions Conference, which is very, it's all technical training. So it's a great event for you to come to learn how to do all of the things that we just stepped through and more, and a lot more. So, it's open for registration now. If you guys, need the link to get to it, just let one of us know, and we'll make sure you have the information you need to get there and get registered. It's a really good event, and it'll give you a chance to learn how to use all of the capabilities that are built into the Image Manager, so that you can use it to do what it is you need to do.